So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. By the way, that's where I got this from. We were talking about Wayne Lickerman. I think I first saw Wayne do this many years ago when I was at his house. And he's just sort of acknowledging that what's here is there. It's looking out these eyes, it's looking out those eyes, same. It's just taking a moment to acknowledge that. So I just was drawn to it. So I want to talk about a post I made a few days ago about why our stories feel so real. And the reason our stories feel real is because we take the me to be real. So naturally, if I'm real, then I definitely need my stories to be real. Because I've noticed when I do privates, for example, and I would say, well, there's just this, just what's happening, just this. So for net here, it's just the Zoom, just some of us here meeting on Zoom. That's all that's happening. And as you've probably seen, happens here at Satsang too, people still launch right into story and about things that have nothing to do with what's actually presently going on. And I realize that's because they need their stories to be real, right? If I'm a me and I'm real, if I don't have real stories, then what do I have? Nothing. And that's not acceptable to the me. But without a me, there is literally just this. Sounds, sensations, images, just with the simplicity of what's happening. So that's the dreadful plight of the me, is it's forever lost in story. And so it's searching for a better story. Yeah? Me is searching for a better story all the time, nonstop. But there's no freedom in story. None. All story can do is lead to more story. The freedom and the peace is already here. But it's covered over because where's our attention? It's on the story. So one of the famous ones I'm sure you've all heard is, who would you be without your story? Oh, there's Peter. Let me let him in. If you see me looking up to the right, it's because I see somebody's in the waiting room.
As long as it's not several people to the right.
Yeah, right. I learned my lesson. No more Zoom bombs. That was wild. Now, for the me, that sounds very fearful to not have a story. And so the fear says, no, no, no. You have to know what you are. You have to have a plan. You need to know things so you can control them. But there is no control. Oh, here's Dan.
Michael, you make it, you know, it sounds like we're just a mobile antenna. You know, all the senses are working, you know, all the antenna are out, and we can ambulate. So we're a mobile antenna. And anything after that is story.
Well, even that story. Well, okay, no, you're fine. I mean, I'm just pointing that out. Can't help it. You can't speak without going into story. This is all story too.
So language is story, by definition.
Yeah. Can't tell a story without words.
Yeah, and words are just labels that we have a conspiracy of what the meaning of it is.
Well, I don't know about conspiracy.
Well, we all agree it means certain things, you know.
Well, the thing that I noticed that people, it seems kind of rare for this to land, is that all words are concepts.
Right.
All words. And that was sort of the theme last week, was even spiritual sounding words. You know, God, the witness, consciousness, awareness, I am. Those are all juicy concepts. And if you're a seeker, they sound really good. And me too. I sought for all that stuff until I saw it was a concept. I'm like, wait a second, I can't find consciousness. I can't find awareness. I can't find the witness. And so that's the freedom, is when those all crumble and there's nothing that replaces the me. It's the me that's interested in all those concepts. When that goes, there's just spacious freedom, just nothing. And in the nothing, everything is appearing. So the nothing is not empty. It's full with this appearance. But the me is trying to use it. The me thinks it's real, so it's trying to use everything it can on its little seeking, whatever it's searching for. And that's the hamster wheel. You're just going in a circle. You're just spinning, as I call it. Any other comments or questions?
So what's the difference between deep sleep and what you're describing?
Well, it's funny you should say that, Faith, because it gives me a great chance to plug my video with Tim today, because we talked about that. I said to Tim Kliss, I said, one of the things of the many that we agree on, which is kind of rare, because reincarnation is super popular amongst the spiritual community. But you die every single night when you go to sleep, in deep sleep. Where are you in deep sleep? Well, maybe death, what we call death, is just deep sleep that you just don't wake up. Now, to me, that sounds, terrible. Sounds terrifying. But think how good it feels to have a really nice deep sleep. How good the body feels when you're rested. And as I shared with Tim today, I've had insomnia my whole life. So for me, a deep sleep is very prized. If I can even go 3-4 hours of solid, heavy sleep, boy, that's a good night. I'm very happy.
But what's the difference between when we're awake and nothing, and when we're asleep in deep sleep?
Well, I think what Michael is saying is that maybe they're the same thing. So what that means is that we are actually, whatever death is, whatever deep sleep is, that's this right now. That's me, except this has a story of my life pasted on top of it. And my attention is constantly going to that story. So I think I'm me, and my attention is not where it is, say, when I'm in deep sleep, which is nowhere. Well, that's always the same. That's what is. If I'm speaking for you, Mike, so you could.
No, that's great. Thanks, Dan. Yeah.
That's kind of the point. That's kind of where we're always heading to here. But it's hard to see because, again, it's death. So what me wants to hear about that it's dead? That's the trick.
Yeah. Yeah, death is not a big seller with the me.
And even now, I just want to, just hearing this, it's a hard message to come in. So that's why we're really always encouraging, ask, say, wait a minute, what does that really mean? Go into it. It's hard, but that's kind of what we do here. It's the opposite of what we're used to 24/7. Okay. By the way, I'm sorry that I showed up late.
Yeah, no worries. Good to have you.
So I'm not really sure I understood when you said that, well, without any of these stories, are you saying death is here because, what did I understand? I misunderstood. Did you say that?
Well,
yeah,
are you asking Dan or?
Well, no, you take it because you can answer it.
Well, first of all, the me thinks it's the body. So the me calls death. When the body dies, I die.
Right.
The question is, are you the body? Because
the answer is no.
Thanks, Charles. Yes, the answer.
I know this one.
Charles has been reading I Am That. So, yeah.
I was reading, he was talking about it this morning. He says, the blankness of deep sleep is entirely due to the lack of specific memories, but a general memory of well-being is there. There's a difference in feeling when we say, I was deeply asleep from I was absent. So he's indicating that there is a there that's other than the story.
Right, but when you're absent, who would be there to know it?
I think he's saying that you would be absent in deep sleep.
Yeah, and it's what I'm saying though, you can't know it. Because one of the questions is often, well, okay, what's it like when your me, however you want to say it, dissolves, disappears, was seen to never be? The answer is just this. It's the same exactly as it is now, except the me makes everything half dead. because all your experiences are not filtered directly. They're not going directly. They're filtered by the me and its conditioning. And so that's why filtering life through a me, everything can feel half dead. And so that's why the me is always looking for drugs or, you know, something to amp it up, because it's not enough as it is. But without the me here, oh, well, it's a whole different story. Without the me here, again, it's completely empty, and yet it's completely full with everything, every sound. And you're not noticing it because your focus, your attention, 99% of the time is on me and its story. And so this is when that dissolves or goes away or is seen to have never been, the moment is always full. It's never lacking. It's never boring, because you need a me to be bored. Because the me is the one saying, this isn't good enough. Something needs to happen. Without that, if nothing's going on, then nothing's going on, but it's not a problem. So here at Satsang, we talk about death as another concept. That there is no death for you because you were never born. Now the body's going to go. One way you can notice this is, and this is how it was over here, I noticed that where I'm looking from has never aged. Have you noticed that? The emptiness that you're looking from, it doesn't age. Not only does it not age, it doesn't move. So where you're looking from, you may notice, then you take a vacation, go to Hawaii, get inside your room, it's the same, you're looking from the same place, wherever you are. So that
I noticed that age thing when I got into my 50s, because when I was younger, I always felt like I was older than my body age. And now that I'm older, I always feel like I'm younger than my body age. Like I don't feel like I've changed. The only thing that's changing is the body, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body.
I feel the same way. You know, it's like if you close your eye, you know, there's a 20-year-old in there and this body's way into the 60s. And I'm just like, you know, you look at everything aging and you're just like, you know, there's kind of a disconnect. I mean, it's like, who is this? What is this?
Yeah, so that's why I don't know is so freeing. That's why you've heard me say many times that your knowledge does you no favors when it comes to this. Knowledge is great for worldly things. If you want to, you know, build a car, you need knowledge. If you want to plan a trip, you need knowledge. But for what we're pointing at here at Satsang, nothing to do with knowing, not about a knowledge, because it's not a thing. Knowledge is all about a thing, and there's something that knows something. So there's two, we call duality. And that's all appearing in this, which we can't say, which I call the mystery. and Jim Newman and some others called The Mystery.
Because what is it that you can know about absence, about what isn't here? What can you know about that? What can you understand? What story can you tell? Nothing. So all the stories and all the knowledge, everything I know, that is about the present. That's about the thing that's here. In other words, the body, mind, the story of me. But that is it's an appearance, right? And it's not me. Because, and actually, this is the thing, if it is me, then I'm in this position of being completely unstable, of being completely threatened by death and needing to do something about that, needing to get myself stable and needing to fight this death thing that's constantly kind of knocking me off my tracks. So it's like looking deeply in and really get down and see what's really going on. Am I really the thing that is here? In other words, here in the world. If I'm here, then I must be physical and I must be limited. And if I see that, wait, no, that was just an assumption. That was a conditioned idea that started at birth and took over. But look again and see, no, wait, maybe I'm not that. Maybe I am this absence, this thing that's like in deep sleep. Although it's beyond that. But anyway, just getting into this feeling of absence, and noticing that everything that I'm about as me is all assuming that I'm a presence, which means physical, which means, anyway. But is anybody, does this ring with anyone? Is anybody here admitting that they might be absent? That's kind of what I'm interested in. Oh,
well, it made me think of, I have pictures of my father. He died in our house. And 1 minute there was breath, and that was my father. And then when the breath and the heartbeat stopped, I'm looking at this body, and it's just a body.
Yeah.
That my father was in, but that wasn't him, or something like that. I mean, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
There was no breath, there was no heartbeat. That there was a body, but that wasn't him.
Yeah.
Anymore. And it's just kind of, weird. What we do with our belief or constructs is that if there's breath and it's breathing, it's a person, it has identity. And if you take all that out, then it's just a body.
Yeah, well, there's this famous story when Ramana Maharshi had cancer and he was dying. All his devotees gathered around and said, we don't want you to go. And he said, where would I go? See, the idea of going assumes you came.
Yeah. Assumes you were here and you had a presence instead of an absence, which is what Dan was talking about.
All the comings and goings only are coming and going in the story. There's just stories of coming and going. And you're not a story. That's the thing.
Kim?
Sitting here listening to all this, and it's so helpful. I'm so lost in the details right now that I'm so surface and trying to get down there. This is really helping, but I'm listening to all this, realizing that my little 6-year-old boy is so much better at this than I am. He's so much better at this. He is one of a kind and seems to have a very different concept of space and time. And while it can be really challenging to go through a linear world with him, it's amazing how he sees things. When you're talking about the body, it is a bit of a story, but when he was 3, he formed a very strong connection with Ram Dass that's inexplicable to me, because Ram Dass was not my person that I followed. And when Ram Dass died, I was actually a little afraid to tell him. So I told him one night, and he said, well, I can still draw him, right? Because he drew him all the time. And we can still watch him. And so he was actually telling me that literally nothing had changed for him. And all these people were like heartbroken because Ram Dass was gone, right? And we can't hear him or get his wisdom. And Jacob was like, dude, he was never here and he's never gone. Like literally nothing has changed for him. And a year after his death, he's still like one of his best buddies that he talks about going on adventures with. So
wait, did you say this is your 6-year-old?
Yeah.
Wow.
6-year-old, and it's ebbed and flowed. It's come back lately. But yeah, he formed an incredibly strong bond with him. And I really enjoy Ram Dass, but I didn't know a thing about him. I was part of a meditation group that had mentioned him quite a lot. And one night I was like, hey, Jacob, you want to check out Ram Dass? And from then on, he was just one of his best friends in his mind. But it was just interesting that everyone was kind of mourning about loss. And Jacob was saying, well, he's still here. Literally nothing has changed. But it's just realizing that, man, that little kid has got it going on. But here I am at 47, mired in the details and the me and the doing. And I just need to get on his level a little bit more.
Yeah, well, but you have a handicap because he's still a child. You have 40 some years of conditioning. So it's actually, again, I was sharing, Tim and I were talking about this during our conversation today about children and the natural childlike innocence that gets conditioned out of us as we get older, because now we have to conform. Once I know who I am, or I think I do, then I kind of have to figure out where I am in the world, and I'm constantly concerned about what others think. And it's no fun being a me. It's constant suffering, more or less. So, and you can look at a child that's, 2 years old or 3 years old, and their full self hasn't developed yet. So they have no qualms about saying whatever on their mind. They'll just blurt it out. They'll touch things they're not supposed to touch because they haven't had all the rules and conditioning that we have to, quote, fit in to society. And so there's no freedom in that. And so this is about the not knowing. So that's I don't want to say problem, but in quotes, is you just know so much. And slowly, like an onion, you can begin to see that these are all concepts, Kim. Everything you've been taught is actually, and I tend to simplify. So if you just start with this moment and literally take inventory, just right now. So what is actually happening in this moment is just a little Zoom meeting. No, your past isn't here. You've got to drag your past into this moment. And as I was saying to Tim today, some of us are dragging our past from 50 years ago into that. We still remember the time that we were embarrassed in 3rd grade, and we still think about it now and then, 50 years ago or something. And that's a weight. And it has no relevance to this moment. So it's good to start to notice that who would you be without all that conditioning and all that story right now in this moment? If I were to just snap my fingers and cut all those chains to your past, just gone. What's here now listening to my voice?
Freedom.
Yeah. And we can't even say. So I don't know the answer to what's listening to my voice. And that's the beauty. because I'm interested in freedom. The mind is interested in answers. So that's the thing. If you still want answers, then you're going to be a seeker. I don't know anything. I don't have any answers.
Does anybody find that I'm not getting pushback in any way, shape, or form, but I'm at times very comfortable embracing being nobody or no thing. But I find that the world around me wants me to be a me. They want to, like, they're more attached to my personality than I am. And they're a bit more attached to the definition of me than I am, because it makes them comfortable. And this came up recently because my husband asked me to do an Enneagram, which I had done in the past and didn't really jive, but I took it, and it was polar opposite of what it was last time. And that made complete sense to me. Because I was like, well, I could take it 10 minutes from now, and I'm not a willy-nilly person, but it might be different. But there was this attachment to me staying consistent as a me throughout time. And I'm just wondering if other people experience that I'm actually, in theory, very okay letting go of that. But your world around you and your people around you are like, no, you're Kim, you like this, and you do this, and you react that way, and you're a helper. And do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, the world needs you to be a me. Yeah, because it's threatening. If you're saying you're not a me, that terrifies me. I can't deal with that. I need you to be a me. There's power in numbers. So if everyone's a me, then I'm a me, I'm cool. But as soon as someone's not a me, then I start to, well, wait a second.
It's threatening.
Yeah.
But that doesn't need to be a problem for me. You can be as much of a me as people need to be, but you know that you're not that. So that's the important thing. That's what matters. And I think you will just naturally be whatever you need to be for people. That just kind of happens naturally. And you've been doing that your whole life anyway, But what makes the difference is what you understand and how much, whether, you are being the me, or whether you're opening, those things are, the grip on me is opening, which just makes you more flexible. I don't think it's a problem. But
I have to agree with that. I mean, it's not a problem, because when I'm in this space, I happen to show up in a very open way, open to the mystery and the wonder, instead of, all these thoughts that are bubbling back there that are overriding what's actually happening in front of me. So yeah, there's not a problem. I think I used to be a pleaser. I'm definitely recovering from that. So I think it's vestiges of that. Like, people have these expectations, and I used to have to consider them, and now I don't, and that's okay. And I'm going to show up probably in a better way than I did before. Just letting go of those concerns and expectations.
And that's also the value of a place like this, which maybe is a space where you can play with being a little different Kim that's not having to be the Kim, person. And then you'll also naturally draw more people into your life that don't want you to be, slot you into a, that are more, that want you to be just more spontaneous and more, change and see more playful or whatever. Anyway.
And then I'm just going to try to become more like my 6-year-old son, because apparently he knows what's going on.
Well, you're teaching each other. You're very lucky to have each other.
Yeah, I thank you. I'm very lucky to have him.
Sounds like some kind of indigo child or crystal child or something like that,
Oh man, he's something.
I mean, these kids are just different. They're not, there's something different about them. They're very present.
Yeah, and just have their own frequency.
Yeah.
It's if you can just relax into it, it's very amazing. It's when you start to go, oh, I need to teach him how to be a person in this world and how to integrate. that you end up going against it and everything kind of crumbles. But if you can just go, hey, this is really cool, which is harder as a parent than it sounds, it's pretty amazing. And I probably learned more from him than I've learned from anyone in my life. Pretty good so far.
It seems like, being very open-ended in, whatever you're doing with them, so that the creativity can just flow without any limitations.
Yeah.
Homeschooling is good for someone like that, so there's so many institutional conformities in public school, and homeschooling is so much more organic.
Yeah, I agree. He is in school, but not a public one, unfortunately, for my pocketbook.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I've been thinking about space a lot. This idea of I'm convinced that the stuff that we're talking about here is real. It's actual. It's actual from a scientific view, and we just can't. There's no tools. Maybe it can never be seen. I don't know. But it gets me thinking about space for a lot, because although maybe it's a story, physics-based explanations, whether or not they're metaphors or not, help take me there. So things like the double slit experiment, where things depend on how you perceive them in terms of how they turn out, and just the nature of space. Space is fluid. It's got substance to it that impacts the physics equations, and it's teeming with stuff. And not only is it teeming with stuff, electromagnetism, quants, little tiny things, it gives birth to stuff constantly. And they've discovered this by, if they put two huge metal plates together and look between them, the stuff that's continually being expanded by space goes crazy, knocking against the metal plates, and they can sort of see it and detect it. So, like one can bring their attention into the body and breathe from inside rather than breathe from outside. I'm sure a lot of you have done body work and have been brought to that place. I've been placing my consciousness in space, and meditating in the space that I'm at, thinking about the solidity, the impromptu birth that is the universe on the, macro level and the micro level at all times. And there's a trick, sort of, if you bring your mind to the space, then you can really feel your personality moving through the space. The space, and maybe all space. And you can really feel that that sort of conscious residue, or whatever it is, with its stories and baggage and body, electromagnetics and will and whatever else, just sort of moving through that. And it's a nice trick. It's a nice trick.
Yeah, Charles, science is interesting and it's very fascinating to the mind, but to me, those are still stories. They're sexy. They're the double slit and quantum and quarks and the Big Bang and all that. But the message here at Satsang is that this is a mystery that cannot be figured out. And that's the piece. That's the piece. Because the me says, once I know the answer, or once I understand the equation a little better, then something will be revealed. This, at Satsang, we're not saying that. We're saying it's already here, right now. This is what you're looking for. And it's funny, because it's like the prodigal son that has to go out and have this great adventure, and he ends up coming back home, and he ends up right where he started. And you'll see you've never gone anywhere.
It's like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, same idea. That the idea that you never go anywhere, that this is it, this is reality, right here. It's not magical, it's not, I mean, it is magical, but what I'm saying is it's not hidden. It's literally in your face. And because it's disguised as everything, we miss it. Because the mind says, well, this couldn't be it. What? This is just my apartment. Well, look again.
So Muji talks about a non-phenomenal recognition, which is something recognizing itself. I listened to your interview this morning with Tim. It was really great. And you spoke about witnessing, and that got sort of me thinking, because the witnessing is happening, but there isn't a witness. So, and I think that non-phenomenal recognition is knowing there's witnessing, but there's no entity witnessing. That's where that non-phenomenality comes from.
Yeah.
And that I find really hard to speak about. I don't know how you can have a conversation about it.
Right, very good. First of all, thank you, Diane. And I thank you for your comment, your lovely comment on YouTube under the video.
You know what happened? You know, when you were talking about the butterflies, just as you were talking about butterflies, I was sitting out the back here and butterflies appeared. It was amazing.
Wow. Perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, the non-phenomenal recognition is a pretty fancy, highfalutin word, but it just means that you don't know what's looking. And see, the thing is, the mind wants to know. Can you feel that in all our questions, myself included? There's that, well, if I could just know, if I could understand non-duality just a little more. And that's the mind trying to know what this is. But it's not knowable. And that's the beauty. That's the love. Love isn't a thing. I mean, the dumbest thing I've ever heard is, oh, well, we're going to define love now. How would you define love? I mean, that's like an oxymoron. As soon as you define it, you limit it. This love is unlimited in that it allows for everything. It's the me that has a problem with that, not love. Love sees the butterfly in COVID no differently. The me, now that's another story. It's all it, disguised as everything. There are no two separate things. There's just everything. And that everything is nothing. And a question that, for some reason, almost nobody asks themselves, and if they do, they don't take it too seriously. But there is one question I would recommend if you wanted to meditate on something. I don't usually give out practices, but I will say that you could sit there seriously and ask, where does everything come from?
I asked myself that when I was 10. Never did find an answer to that.
Yeah, but nobody thinks where it came from. We're just wanting it, right? I don't stop to think where all this came from. I just know I want a car, I want a relationship, I want to fall in love, me, more money, you know, all about getting. But for some of us, we stop and go, well, wait a second. Where did this come from? How is this appearance right here?
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
And there's no answer to that. There is no answer to that. That's just a mind question. But it can dawn on you when we say that this is nothing appearing as everything, everything comes, and I don't want to say it comes from nothing, it is nothing. They're not two. This is nothing appearing as everything. And that isn't even right, but it's as close as we can get in words. So that's the emptiness. Now the me takes everything to be solid and real, and that's the suffering. Because as a me, I don't recognize the emptiness. I'm just all about the solidity, what's real. But everything's empty. And there you go, Charles, that's the Buddhist. You said that you're part of a Buddhist group up in Long Beach. The Buddhists are really good about emptiness and recognizing the inherent emptiness of everything. Everything is inherently empty. And it's really, I feel it's worth spending a little bit of time just reflecting on that everything you think is solid is empty.
Michael, can I just ask, is there a place for self-inquiry in this? I'm not even sure what self-inquiry is, but is there a place for that in what you speak of?
Yep, and I hate to keep plugging it, but that was another topic that Tim and I went over, and he and I that's one thing I was so thrilled about getting to have a conversation with him, was because we tend to see things the same way. And I'm sorry, now your question just flew out of my head. Say again?
Is there a place to self-inquiry?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I was saying, and Tim and I were both saying the same thing. Self-inquiry should not take very long. It's what I notice happens is the me will turn that into a project. Will now spend years and decades looking for my true self. And I did it too. So guilty as charged. I'm right there. What I realized was you actually only need to look a few times to know that there's no me inside the body. Just like if I were to send you to the closet and I said, Faith, would you go get me my umbrella out of the closet? And you open up the closet and there's nothing in it. And you come back to me and say, well, Michael, there's no umbrella in there. I go, no, there's an umbrella. How many times would you have to look before you left my house and said, that guy's crazy? So one of the traps that the me will do is we'll get the seeker involved in looking for its true nature for decades. And I'm saying that you just need to notice that there's no me inside the body. There's no I there. There's blood, there's bones, there's a heart, lungs, all the bodily things that make the body. Body's like a machine. It's like a car. It's got all these parts, but there's no me in there.
For me, I think it was the self-inquiry, my little time with self-inquiry was an important stepping stone to get to this.
Well, when you looked, did you find anything? Did you ever find anything?
No, I didn't find anything. And the first time that a facilitator did it with me, I started off with a story that was important and bothering me. And by the time I got to the end of my time with him, I thought, I couldn't believe it. I thought, what was it that was bothering me? I don't know where it is. Was gone. Yeah, and that was a real wake up, shake up, important realization.
Yeah. And I just want to mention that whatever's happening is happening. So if frustration shows up, that's just what's happening. If as I shared with Tim today, I suffered from depression for most of my life, like 40 years of depression ran in my family. And I had made that into a victim story. And, you know, I'd always envisioned, and actually I used to use Trump, funny enough, as the example of, I thought of an ego as something, you know, flamboyant and look at me and attention seeking like Trump. But it took a long time to realize that identity can be negative too. The me doesn't care because I was poor me, you know, oh, you know, it's so unfair, blah, blah, blah. And when I saw that was an identity, just as much as an overinflated ego, an underinflated ego, that was like I know what you mean, Faith. That was sort of like an aha moment, like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this message doesn't give you anywhere to land. So the me is not replaced. It's not like, oh, well, if I see there's no me there, then what? Then nothing. Then enjoy the emptiness because life is doing you anyway. Mm. You've been the little kid with the fake steering wheel thinking that you were in control, and it's been an illusion the whole time.
But can you, is it part of the story if you get a sense that it's grace that's been leading you all the way through? That's how I feel about it. I feel like it's grace that underneath it all leading me home or something. Is that just part of the story?
What do you think?
Probably part of us. No, I don't know. I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Well, let's go back to my little thing. If there's words, it's a story.
Yeah. Yep. It's the story. It's part of the good story. I also have bad stories going around in my head as well, but it's part of a good story.
Michael, I have a question about that because Faith brings up a good point because you've mentioned this a number of times when you're on a hike and, you know, or you get the parking spot, you can tell you're more synchronized with the universe, so to speak. So maybe Faith in some way is saying she's just more aware of that synchronicity. You know, like the grace for her is that feeling when you notice the butterfly, not because it's COVID or not. So I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. There seems like there is some change in awareness that maybe you, I don't know. There just seems something there because I know you've mentioned this a number of times about how you've noticed when you are, you know where I'm going.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I'll tell you my experience with it is, it's just that when there's not a me there, I notice that whatever is happening is fine. And because whatever's happening fine, I notice that I seem to be more resourceful. there just seems to be this not caring. And by not caring, it's like, oh, okay, there's no parking spots. Oh, wait, well, what do you know? There's one, you know what I mean? It's like, and again, it's not personal. It's just an openness with whatever's happening. And it just seems that life has an intelligence when you're not there. And things I notice seem to flow much, I can't even explain how. I've seen it over and over and over, how things, and again, this is all story, but I mean, things worked out that I just know Michael could not have pulled off. There's just this, I want to say, almost getting out of your own way and let go, and just life has a natural flow to it, that the me was sort of bossing life around, saying it needs to look and be a certain way. Diane, were you going to say something?
Because something like that happened to me yesterday, actually. And I was already late because when I'm out at the health retreat, I do some therapy, but I also teach a Zumba class. And I was running late already. When I got there, the speakers wouldn't work for the music, and you just can't do Zumba without music. And so people are waiting, and the old me would have been freaking out because I had no idea what to do. And so I just thought, okay, well, what do I do now? Something's got to happen. So I thought I'll go and get somebody and that might know what to do. And when she came down, all she did was pull it out from the wall that much, and the music started.
Exactly.
And we began. And there was no worrying about anything. Everybody was calm. But it was just like, it could have been a catastrophe on the inside, but it wasn't. And it didn't really matter whether it got fixed or it didn't, but it was interesting how it all came about. So I know exactly what you mean. That happens quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because
there's no investment in outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, you've never done anything. It's always been life doing everything. And so it's just you stopping, grabbing that child's steering wheel. And once you do that, like Diane says, you can't really explain it, but it definitely, it just has a different vibe to it. I just don't know how else to say it. There's not that, you know, and Diane's being very honest. She knows that she would have been, maybe in the past, a little freaked out, understandably, that her music wouldn't go on. But now it's like, that's what is. That's what's going on. The music's not working. That's what is. But somehow there's a wisdom, a life that you could not have figured out on your own. And she shows up, she pulls the plug out a little, and boom, music works.
But to take this full circle, see, I like these stories, but I feel like that's why I said something, because when Faith was talking, it feels like the way she was describing grace was very similar. There's some acknowledgement. I mean, I don't know what the right word is, but there's an awareness, there's an acknowledgement that's not the self or the mind. It's just more of the synchronicity, back to that word. And so that's what I was, you know, that's why I wanted to say something. Because I think Faith, the way she was mentioning it, is that she said a self-inquiry, but I think maybe what she may have meant as well is that there's just a sense of grace taking over. And I think her form of grace maybe is the way Diane and you were describing the wisdom, the word you used, right? There's just a wisdom, but there's an awareness, because you know that you allowed it to be, as opposed to not allowing it to be, right?
Well, when the me is there, it just can't do that, right? The me, if a me is on the scene, it's going to try and control. Without the me, there's just what is. Now, maybe her music wouldn't have worked, you know, maybe it wouldn't. But the thing is, there's just what's happening. It just so happened that it happened to work. And I'll tell you, there's such gratitude when you see it all beautifully come together like that. In a way, that reinforces the letting go. And again, this is all story, but I noticed the more times, Diane, that I have seen this over and over in my life, I don't have to be sold anymore. I see that, you know, when Michael's not there, it's just beautiful. It's just whatever's happening is happening, and there's no problem with it. It's only when the me is on the scene that judgment starts in about what should and shouldn't be happening.
I could also be worried about the next time I go there, because I don't think anyone's doing anything about it. So it'll be interesting when I get there next time.
Right, but now you know the secret, so you can just plug it in.
Well, I said to her, I'm not touching it. Well, let's just leave it where it is. It seems to be working. Yeah. And it's grace that Faith and I met, I think. I think if you have the calling, if you have that interest in this, that what you need sort of comes. I mean, I ran a Muji Satsang and I had never met Faith, and she turned up, and some of those people I never see again, but Faith and I have, you know, kept in touch over that time. And I'm very grateful for that to happen. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and let me just say one last thing, Alan, about what you were saying. Ultimately, you don't need anything. So that's why I say grace is still a story, because it's as if I need that parking spot or she needed that to plug in. In the story of me, yeah, I'm running a Zumba class. It's helpful to have music, but that's from me.
It's when you don't need anything to be any way in particular, it just is what it is. Mm-hmm. There's just no investment in how it should be.
Right. And but what I noticed, Diane, and see if this checks, if when you're open, like we're talking about, solutions come that would not be there if you were stressed and worried and running around like a chicken with his head cut off. You just don't have available all these possibilities that when you're quiet and silent inside and empty, solutions can just show up that you're like, wow.
Yeah, it was like joining the dots, because I thought I'll find Matt because he's in charge of that. But the girl said, Matt's not here today. But then she said, let's go and ask somebody else. So it was just like follow the crumbs.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah. Follow the crumbs. Yeah. I like it.
So would you say then that like Diane's noticing and you're noticing, is that the Tao? There's not a term for it, obviously, but there is an acknowledgement or an awareness. So I guess what would you, I mean, it is what it is, right? But I mean, would you say that you're acknowledging that things are synchronizing? That's just the Tao. I mean, you just happen to notice it. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I think I'm getting a little confused. Like, there's a part of you that's noticing things are synced versus not synced.
In the story.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would say is just notice that that's a story. And it's lovely when things work out. I'm sure Diane was very happy that she had music. So there's no denying, this actually, and maybe this is a good note to end on this evening, but there is no denying your humanity in this message. In fact, you become more human, because without the me there, with all its clinging and its neediness, you're open and available in a way that when the me is there, you're just not, because you're filled with judgments and ideas and the past and all that. Because, see, come back to nothing. Nothing needs to happen. Nothing is happening.
So you're referencing the humanity part of you when you're on your hike and you notice things are just, or the parking spot, it's the humanity part of you that's noticing the synchronicity. Yeah. And really being more empty and more in the Tao, so to speak.
Yeah.
Got it. See what you started, Faith?
Thank you. That was good. We went round the circle, we got to the end.
Yay.
Came full circle back to grace and the Tao.
Yeah. Thank you.
And love. We've covered some great things tonight. And emptiness, a lot of emptiness.
Any other final comments or questions before we close out? Thank you, everybody, so much for coming to Satsang. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, as always.
Thanks, you guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.